Yeah, so that was the concept about the AMI which we are trying to understand it. So one of the important point, and not only that AMI, and we are understanding that another concept that is templates creation also. So how do we create a template? That is a launch template option. We can define the AMI, type of instance, security groups, key pairs, volumes, and advanced section which are talking about some important properties that is about user data, shutdown behavior, termination behavior, credit specification, is it required or not? And you can launch it with that template by, we can launch the spot instances by using the template also. Yes, all that's options which are understanding on the template side. So while launching that instance, either you can use the AMI as an input or a template as an input. So that was a concept which we had it yesterday. So are you clear about that, these points?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, finally, quick review of this. If you go to that in this section, is AMI concepts and types of EC2 instances, security groups understanding, key pairs understanding, that is downloading that key pair and using that key pair connecting to the system. But whatever the key pair we are downloading, that is a private key, and public key is already there within the EC2 instance. Yeah, we need that private key with the right permissions to connect it to the EC2 instance. And the security group should allow that SSH for that Linux-based systems, and RDP, that is for Windows-based systems. And instance metadata services, if you would like to get that the details information of the EC2 instance, that is about availability zone information, type of instance information, AMI ID information. Yes, during runtime, if you'd like to collect that all the data, we can use this metadata link where we can request that the AWS, which is providing that instance related details. And user data we are understanding during the bootstrapping time, and elastic IP, that is static public IP address for the EC2 instance, and the template concept, yes, pre-configured templates which contains AMI ID, instance type, and network settings. So it is going to simplify the creation of EC2 instances. Yeah, so there are some important points which are understanding so far on the EC2 instance, but still that is not ended. So we have still some more concepts that's about, let me start. Just a minute, screen is stuck. Yeah, good. Yeah, so these concepts are not enough, but still we have one more important concept that is about EBS volumes. Yeah, storage section, so far we are understanding that the default storage, but if we need that the additional storage, so how do we attach that to the volumes, or in case EC2 got failed, but data we should not lose it that. But how do we make sure about the data backups? So these are all some points which we should know that on the persistent mechanism of the disk side. Yes, let's look into that EBS volume concept. And once this is discussed, next two more concepts, that is about load balancing and auto scaling. So how do we configure the load balancing to the EC2 instances, and as well as the scaling groups, how do we manage it? There are the two more concepts. Yes, first let's start about that EBS volumes concept. And suppose whenever we bought the laptop, then we get this like a hard disk, right? So yes, we have that hardware, one of the peripheral, that is a hard disk, which is going to have the say the 256 GB or 512 GB or 1 terabyte. But why do we need it? The storage. We have the RAM storage and as well as hard disk as well as. So what is the usage of the hard disk? To store the data, right? Whatever the softwares we are installing, or what are the files we are creating, directories. So everything that will be stored finally on the hard disk. In the laptop wise, if we just talk it that. But if you are going to use the cloud from the cloud provider, that is AWS, and if we need the storage for about our virtual machine, we understand now so for launching the virtual machine. But that virtual machine, if it is required some storage, yes, how do we manage the storage and how the AWS team, they are providing the service to handle the storage for it. Yeah, so let me quickly launch that EC2 instance and we'll observe the default behavior. Then we'll come back to that. So additional things that is required, how we can do that. Yeah, let me go ahead to the AWS management console and let's try to launch the instance. Okay, so let me look at this one. Yeah, I'm going to use it, my root account. Don't worry about it. Which account, any account you can use it. Yeah, IAM account also. But I have some issue with that IAM account. That's why I'm using the root account. So let me log into this. Yes, in which region I'm going to launch it. Let me switch to the Mumbai region or any region. That's fine. The activity is the same. Okay, let me launch that one instance with the default configuration, whatever we are doing. We'll launch it and we'll observe that the default behavior. Then what are the additional things that we are going to learn it? That we'll come back to. Yeah, I'm going to just launch the server, or you can launch the web server. And Amazon Linux to AMI and T2 Micro. Key pair, yes. So that's required to log into the system. Let me try to use it. I have yesterday we're creating AWS AMI. Let me use this key pair. Network settings, that's fine. Security group, let me attach that, which I need it SSH1. So this is going to have that two ports like a 22 and 80. And especially storage wise, if we just talk it here, which we are talking that. So configure storage. So here by default, it is given that 8 GB capacity with the type of the storage, that is GP2. That is general purpose SSD. SSD type of disk, that is a high cost, but the performance wise is very good. Yeah, GP2 based SSD by default, it is going to creating that. And we are launching the virtual machine with that AMI. AMI is Amazon Linux, right? Linux based AMI. Linux-based AMI, what do we say that? A root volume. If it is a Windows-based operating system, C drive by default. But if it is a Linux-based operating system, what is the default one? I mean, a default the directory system which you are going to have it, root file system. Yeah. So whenever we are launching the EC2 instance with the default storage, that is launching with the root volume. So let me launch it, and let's go ahead launch that instance. So let's wait some time so to getting up that. Meanwhile, are you following this? That's the playlist which was started in the YouTube channel. So we are planning to give the day-wise sessions. Whenever you would like to review back, then you can go back that and you can just the review that point, the high level. And if you need that more information, then log into about our site and that refers the concepts. So was it helpful? Everyone, are you following that? That's day one.
Just saw some videos, sir. Not complete.
Sorry.
I saw just some videos, sir.
Yeah.
Some videos only.
Yes. I just started the day one and day two, which I have given. Every day, early morning, 7 o'clock, one video will be released with the day 3, day 4, like that. And if you'd like to recollect about your concepts, just review that, the high level, the concepts. That would be helpful as a revision, quickly revision.
Okay, sir.
If you others any the feedback and about any points which you would like to mention it, yes, please add the comments to that. So how does the video, if you add the comments and if you share it, yes, that would be helpful for us as well as. Okay, good. So has it been started? So still it is not ready, but let me try to connect it. So the key pair which we are using, AWS AMI, right? Which we were, yeah. So this is the file. Let's go ahead. Okay, so which has, I mean, this instance has been started with the default volume. That's we are talking about the root volume. And if you verify this, how do we check it that the file system?
DF.
Yeah, dff H command. So here you can see this the file system and what is the size of it and used one, available one, usage in the percentage, and where it has been mounted, all the details. But some of that file systems are the temporary file systems which we can ignore it. So all these, but the main file system, if we just observe that, so this is the device which has been attached. So whatever the hardware which is providing by the AWS team for 8 GB, that device, yes, this is the device. That is a device and device, the partition which is having that XVDA1. and size which is having that 8 GB and used that is out of it 1.7 GB either for the temporary file systems, all this to manage it, and remaining available 6.4 GB and 21% that has been used, and this is mounted at a root level. Yeah, so what are the default mount point? I mean, the default storage which you are taking that while launching the EC2 instance, that is mounting at a root level. But the root file systems of the C drive, if you just talk it on the Windows, C drive, can we use it to store that important files? Do you prefer that? C drive to store that important files?
No, only OS related files we keep it on C
Yes.
drive.
Yes, we don't prefer because the C drive, like something is any virus is attacked or something is happened, and if you like to format it, C drive will format it. But remaining about our file system, that's the backend, other the drives which we have, that D drive or E drive, we store it or we use it for that important files to manage it. Yeah, C drive especially, that is for OS related, any packages if you would like to or binaries if you would like to add it, then we use it. Like that on the Linux also, root file system, that is, yes, any softwares if you would like to install it, the binary files or the libraries, the third party softwares, yes, which we use it. But suppose project related some important files we have, that is about the reports point of view, about the log files point of view, some is database important configuration, data. If you would like to store it, we don't prefer that the default file system, that is a root. So recommended is, so use that the separated disks and create that mount point and attach that mount point to the system or the disk to the system and use it that. The project related, the workspaces point of view. Yeah, now this is the default one which we got it, but there's the 8 GB of the size, and you can add it more also if you need it on this. But root file system is not recommended to manage the main data. But how do we attach that additional volumes as a backups point of view? And after attaching that's the device, how do we mount it? That's one to the file system. And after mounting, how you can access that, the mount point. Yeah, this is one thing which we should know that on the volume side. Yeah, volume is volume types. Yes, that is one thing which we should know. But after knowing that the types of the volumes, yes, if I are attaching the any volume to the EC2 instance, how I can attach it, the volume, additional volumes to the EC2 instance, or how I can detach it, the volume from the EC2 instance. So those things that we need to understand it. Yeah, this is the default behavior understanding. There's a default storage that is mounting that's on the root level. But the root level, we don't use it to store that the project related, important either report files or configuration files or data files. So we don't store it in the root mount file system. We attach that the different disks. Yeah, how do we attach it and how do we use it? While attaching that, what are the different types are available? So those points let's conclude over here. Yeah, EC2 instance, the losses its root volume when it is manually terminated. So what's going to happen that whenever we terminate the EC2 instance, what are the default root volume which you are attaching that will be terminated, and unexpected terminations might happen from time to time. That is, AWS is going to email to you. Yes, like as we are talking about it, spot instances we have taken. The spot instances, So might happen time to time. So that's termination of it. If there's any termination is happened, then we'll get that email. But whenever it is terminated and the root volume and you are storing and you are using that, if something root volume is also terminated, then we'll be losing the data, right? So we should not lose the data. That is important. Even that the default OS level file system, if it is lost, it also fine. We can relaunch it, the new operating system. But about our application data or services data, we should not lose it. That. So just a minute, guys. 1 minute. Good. Yeah, so whenever the unexpected terminations are happen, then we lose the root volumes. So we should not store that important data in the root volumes. That is important point. So then yes, yeah. So sometimes we need to store that about your instance data somewhere. So where do we store that? The data is that is the block storage. Yes, AWS has come up with that EBS service, that is elastic block storage. Is a volume, but it is kind of the network drive. The beauty what we have with this is EBS volume. It is kind of the network drive. What is this network drive? Suppose in our general terminology, if we just talk it laptop. Whenever I bought the laptop is going to have that hard disk, which is something 256 GB or 512 GB, some kind of the storage, some amount of the storage. But if that the storage is the full, then what do we do that? How do we take the backup of it? Then we use an external hard disk or external drives, the where we attach it with USB port and we dump the data to the external hard disks, right? But which one is the persistent between these two?
The data in the drives.
Is it external or internal hard disk?
Internal.
Which one is the persistent? So suppose if that laptop is crashed, something is happened. Then
The backup that we have taken.
yeah, that's point of view. So we should not believe on the hard disk, right? We always should have the backup of it, like external hard disk. So if we just talk it like EBS volume, which we are attaching that to the EC2 instance, it is kind of external volume. So what is that advantage of the external volume? So I can easily attach, I mean, my system is up and running, my laptop is, yes, the ways I have started and up and running, and I can attach it or volume, and I can take this, the copy the files, or from the drive to the disk, or disk to the drive, I can copy it, and I can detach that external hard disk, and I can attach to that another system, and I can access the data in that system, right? But if it is a hard disk, I cannot do all the things. Hard disk, which is a hardware peripheral, and if I would like to use it, I need to open my system, the back, and I need to have some exposure on the hardware related activities. So that is not at all recommended. But yes, but if it is external hard disk, I can attach it here and either copy the files or from to, then detach it, then attach to another system, and you can do that activities. So EBS volume is kind of network drive. It is kind of external hard disk where you can attach to about your instances while they run it also. At any time you can attach it and you can detach it. It allows about your instances to persist the data. Yes, these volumes, EBS volumes. So if you properly manage it about the backup lifecycle activities, you can have it the persistent data. Yeah, EBS volume, it's not, it's a network driver. It's not a physical drive. Like it is not a hard disk and it is an external hard disk kind of the stuff. And it uses the network to communicate the instance, which means there might be a bit of latency, definitely, right? Suppose if I'm copying the files drive to drive, that means disk to disk, it will be very fast. But if I copy the file from my hard disk to the external USB drive or some external hard disk, you see this on the base of network wiring mechanism bandwidth, the rate of the transfer will be changed. Yeah, so if you're going to use the EBS volume while copying the data, some little bit latency definitely will be having that because this is going to use it on the network-based communication. And it can be detached from EC2 instance and attached to another one quickly. That is the beauty of it. We'll see this, that's a demonstration. But it is locked to that availability zone. That means only within that availability zone, within the data center, from one EC to that another EC2 instance, you can attach it or you can detach it. You can do anything in the same availability zone, not even that region. That is only in the same availability zone. Yeah, the EBS volume in US is to 1A cannot be attached to that US is to 1B. So only in 1A which you can use it. But to move a volume across, you first need to have it a snapshot. But you can do that. But volume, EBS volume directly you cannot attach it. What you can do this is volume, take it and create a snapshot of it. And take that snapshot and move, copy that snapshot to that other availability zones or other regions. Then you can go ahead with that. And whenever we are choosing that is the EBS volumes, so we have the provision capacity that is in the size in the GBs and IOPS based. Yes, on the base of that amount of the size that is required and IO operations per second, that is writing the data, reading data on the disk per second based, we can provision these EBS volumes. But you get billed for all the provision capacity. Yes, on the basis of the capacity size is size based or IOPS based, then the bill which will be generated, and you can increase the capacity of the drive over time. Yes, at any time you can increase that. Yeah, that is about EBS volume. EBS volume is kind of the network drive, and which you can easily attach it or detach to that the EC2 instances which are in the same availability zone. But if you need to that having the same data replication to that other availability zones or other regions, you need to create a snapshot. Then you can copy the snapshot from either zone to zone or zone to other regions. But whenever you are writing the data to the EBS volume, some little bit latency will be having that. Why that latency is? It is kind of the network drive. It is not the physically attached the drive to the EC2 instance. Yeah, as we are understanding that these are all locked to the availability zone. That means whatever the EBS volume which I am having, that's I can attach to that in the same availability zone. Volume and EC2 instance must be in the same availability zone. But I cannot take it this 50 GB of the EBS volume, taking and attaching to that another availability zone EC2 instance. But how we can do that? But what is the solution? Directly volume we cannot do that. volume, you need to create a snapshot. The snapshot you can copy it. After copying, then you can use a snapshot to create a volume. Then that's once volume is available, you can attach that. Yeah, what are the different volume types are available? Yes, while provisioning or while launching the EC2 instance, we have the different the types of that, the volumes. As we are understanding the GP2, GP3, there is general purpose, the generation 2 version, generation 3 versions, and IOPS based. Yeah, GP2, general purpose SSD volume, that balance price and performance for wide variety of the workloads. The medium kind of the storage performance, if it is required, yes, you can take it this GP2 based. But IO based, when do we take it is, yes, these are all like large transaction, large or huge amount of the transactions you are expecting that on the volumes, that is the highest performance is required from the SSD volume for the mission critical low latencies or high throughput workloads. Yeah, IOPS is recommended. IOPS is IO operation per second. So especially databases and huge amount of the transactions, if you have that, then the recommended is IOPS based. But middleware kind of the services, that is web or Tomcat, these kind of the services to launch it, we go for the GP2 based. But about two, which we have this is SSD based, but next one is HDD based. HDD is the very, the less performance the compared with the SSD, but there are the low cost HDD volume designed for frequently accessed, and they're all especially throughput intensive workloads. That means the large amount of the data I would like to transmit it, the amount of the data. So writing or reading, especially data processing point of view, which can be used. Yeah, ST1, SC1, these are also lowest cost volume designed for the less frequently accessed workloads. So whenever we are choosing about the volume, there are the 4 points that we need to consider about it. So general purpose or HDD based or IOPS based. But within that, again, we have the different types of the models. The AWS team, they keep on coming up with that, giving the best optimization on the storages and the performance improvement and reducing that, yes, latency issues. So in the transaction, the amount of the data, how much amount of the data you are writing that MBs data to the disk, or you are reading that MBs of the data from the disk. On the base of that, the volume types will be decided. Yes, EBS volumes are categorized on the base of the size of the disk, the amount of the data, that is a throughput, the writing the data. Suppose I need to write the data to the disk in the MBs. From the application, I'm receiving that MBs of the data. So MBs of the data to write into the disk or reading from the disk, yes, throughput is which you need to check it. And as well as IOPS also, how many operations. So per second, we are writing that to the disk. Per second, we are reading from the disk. All these points that will be considered whenever we are choosing the volume. You always refer that AWS documentation, that is a good approach. So let me show that how do we create a volume, and while creating the volume, what are the different options are available in the volume. Now already we have launched that the EC2 instance. Yeah, already the EC2 instance with the default volume we have launched. But what do I do that is, we go for this launching the one volume separately. That volume will attach to this EC2 instance. But where do I have the volume concept is? Yes, here you can see this in the Elastic Block Store volumes concepts. Yeah, already whenever we launched the EC2 instance with the 8 GB, background, you see that the volume has been created. The type is GP2 and 8 GB. And IOPS, how many it is supporting that per second? 100 transactions per second. And this is snapshot ID. At what time it has been created? In which availability zone it has been created? The availability zone is also important. And volume state, yes, it is using. Now this volume is getting used by the EC2 instance. And yes, to which instance it has been attached? Yes, this is the instance, that is a server. And volume status is okay. And we didn't encrypt this one. While launching the EC2 instance, we didn't encrypt that. We just created. Yesterday we were doing that whenever we are copying AMI encryption, we are doing this, right? Yeah, AMI as a security point of view, encryption is important. Okay, fine. This is the default volume of this EC2 instance. But a root volume, we don't touch it that, right? Attaching or detaching. Even we can do with root volume also attaching, detaching. Let me do that. Let me create one more volume and which will attach to this EC2 instance during runtime itself. And we'll log in it and we'll access that storage and we'll write some data. And then we'll detach it and we go for this launching another EC2 instance and we'll attach it and we'll check it that. What do I do this? First, let me create one volume. Yeah, while creating that volume, as we are understanding that volume types, is it the GP2 or GP3? So general purpose itself, we have the 2 generation, 2 and 3. This 3 is the latest generation. But what is that? The difference you see that here? Suppose if I go for the GP2, suppose I'm going to take that 100 GB of the disk size. So how many IOPS it is providing? If we just observe that baseline of that 3 IOPS per GB. So 3 IOPS per GB. That means I'm going to choose it 100 GB is nothing but 100 into 3. That is 3000. 3000 IOPS maximum, I'll get it that. But for 1 GB, so 3 IOPS based, it is giving that. But if I move to that GP3 general purpose, but here I will get it minimum 3000 IOPS and a maximum IOPS of 16,000 IOPS I can get it. Yes, you can request it. How many IOPS that is required for whatever volume, the transaction based, that application requirement based, we can identify that and we can customize it. But minimum 3000 and maximum up to how many IOPS you can use it is 16,000 IOPS based. You can configure that on the basis of the size which you are going to take it at. Size also here it you see that minimum 1 GB of that volume you can create it and maximum up to 16 terabytes of that size you can take into that. 16 terabytes of the data. That is a disk size. And the throughput also is whenever you are performing the transaction, how much amount of the data that can be transmitted in the single transaction? Minimum 125 and maximum 1000 MB. The baseline per second 125 MB. So if you're looking about it throughput and up to that 16,000 IOPS and this much of the storage, then in the general purpose they have given that GP3. But if I choose the GP2, yeah, here also you can get it maximum up to this one. But it is supporting the IOPS burstable up to 3000 only. Yeah, but no throughput based is supporting that in the GP2. The per second amount of the data which can be transferred. So if you have this like amount of the data per second, then you need to go for the GP3. So in the general purpose itself, we have the 2 types, that is a 2 and a 3, which are supporting for SSD. Next one, as we're talking about it, IOPS based we have. IOPS again, IO1 and IO2. These are all like the IOPS per second. Yeah, here you can see that the minimum 4 GB which you can go for this, and maximum is 16 terabytes of that, and minimum 100 IOPS which you can start it, and maximum up to 5,000 IOPS which you can use it. So here it is supporting that 50 IO operations per GB, but in the GP2 only 3 IOPS per GB, right? But here we are choosing that IOPS based. The more IO operations per second if you are expecting, that means more load on the data to write it or to data read it, then you can use it that IOPS based. But general transactions, yes, you can use it GP2, GP3 on the base of that the custom requirement and the throughput based. Yeah, so the provision IOPS SSD IO1, it is supporting that up to maximum 5,000 IOPS, but per GB it is giving that 50 IO operations per second. But there is no throughput based. And size up to 16 terabyte which you can use that. But if you change to that IO2, is then you will get it more the IOPS. You see that 1 lakh IOPS you can get it that. And per GB it is given that 1000. So on the base of the GB which you are using, per GB into 1000 IOPS which you can configure that. But first one is only 3 IOPS per GB. Second IO1 which is supporting that 50 IOPS per GB, but this one is supporting that 1000 IOPS per GB. But throughput is not applicable. But yes, this is you see that it is supporting that up to 65 terabytes of the volume which you can take into that. Yes, volume capacity also can be high. If you are expecting this much volume, yes, up to this, yes, you can use it this type of the provision the volume. And the another one which is available HDD based. So cold HDD, magnetic tapes, how do we have this in the world? Yes, you can use it that type. But they're all the very cheap cost and performance, no IOPS support, no throughput support, and up to the 1 terabytes of the data, you can use it that. But they're all the very less cost and the cheaper one, and the performance is also the very low. And throughput optimized HDDES, this is up to supporting that 16 terabytes of the data and no IOPS, but a throughput 40 MB per terabyte. That's the amount of the data. So terabytes on the base of which you are using, it is going to support that much of amount of the data too while transferring time. Yeah, that's about the provisioning options or the types. Are you clear about these points?
Sir, what is by throughput?
Throughput is amount of the data which you are transferring. Suppose whenever you are checking about it internet speed, so is it 40 Mbps, 100 Mbps you are looking at, right? That means in per 1 second, how much amount of the data that you want to transfer it. The same thing, you are writing to the disk or reading that to the disk per second, how much amount of the data that you want to have it. That is a throughput, amount of the data. In the network terminology, network speed we'll call it, but in disk terminology, we call it as a throughput. Is it clear about that types of the provisions? So go for in the general activities, the GP2 in our context. But yes, whenever we are creating that in the infra application requirement, so databases point of the mostly recommended on the base of the transactions, IO based the recommended. And general middleware components like a Tomcat or WebLogic, if you're launching that, then you can use the GP2 types of that. Or if you have this data, huge amount of the data, reading from the files and uploading to the databases, if you have this kind of the stuff, then throughput based, that is a GP3 based kind of which you can use it, that which is supporting the throughput, and you can increase that here throughput as well as. Yeah, that is on the basis of this requirement of that application, which can be chosen. That I'm going to use the GP2, and let me choose it. I need that something 20 GB. Yeah, so 20 into 3 in this GP2. Yes, around 60 IOPS it is supporting that, but minimum it is providing 100. I'm okay with that. And throughput it is not applicable for this model. And my instance in which region, in which availability zone that is running, that is important, because these are all that locked to the availability zone, not in the region also. So where is my instance is running? In which availability zone? Mumbai region, we know it, but availability zone is also important. That is also 1 year, right? Yeah, I would like to attach that volume to the EC2 instance. Yes, make sure that same availability zone. So I'm going to create in the same availability zone, 1 year. Snapshot ID. Do you want to create a snapshot ID for this? The snapshot says how you can create it. We'll come back later. And yes, I would like to encrypt this volume, because whatever the data I'm going to store it in this volume, I need to have it security. Let's use that the KMS key. So that is a default AWS EBS key. And this is going to help this key to perform that encryption and decryption of the data. And even you are creating the snapshots, and you are copying the snapshots from one availability zone to another availability zone, or one region to another. Yes, about your data will be secured over the network. The key is recommended. And finally, if you would like to add the tags, yes, you can add the tags. Yeah, and then go ahead to create a volume. Let me create this volume. So what are the options we're talking that? Use the GP2, and I am choosing up to 30 GB, go ahead. Otherwise, if you go ahead more than that, then that will be chargeable. Yeah, use the 20 GB. And IOPS is the default IOPS. Throughput not required for us. And make sure that EC2 instance, which EC2 instance do you want to attach it in that availability zone? Choose that the same availability zone. Otherwise, you cannot attach it, this volume, to the EC2 instance. Yes, I need that encrypted of this volume, and with this key, that is EBS volume key. And if you like to add the tags for this, you can add it. That's fine. Let's create a volume. Yes, volume has been created now with this 20 GB. But snapshot, we didn't choose it. That's why it is not created. I see this volume is creating in the same availability zone. Before, this was already attached and it is in use. You see that? In use is nothing but that is already attached and it is getting used by the EC2 instance. But now the volume which you have created, you see that is available. Available is nothing but now I can take this EC2 instance and I can attach to the another EC2 instance. That is a free now. So I can attach this one to the EC2 instance. But how I can attach this one? Yes, select this, the volume, and go to the actions. And you can see this attaching to the volume here. So it is like as a USB drive. Now I have this the volume in the USB drive format. To my laptop, I need to attach it. Yes. So I'm going to use this option, attach volume, and to which EC2 instance. Yes, if it is the same availability zone, then only the EC2 instance which will be listed here. If it's a different availability zone, then it won't be listed here. So that's why we are saying that this is the lock to the availability zone. Yeah, both are in the same availability zone. Now I can choose it my EC2 instance. And now you see this whenever I select the EC2 instance, it is given the device name. So /DEV/SDF. And normally these device names which will start with that. Linux kernels may rename about your devices to DEV XVDF through XVDP internally, even when the device name entered here and shown in the details like SDF or to that SDP. So there's nothing but if you just observe that. Now that's device name, which was showing that XVD, A, B, C, D, like that. It is going to give that names. And here it is giving that the name XVD, XD, F. Or you can give that the name which you prefer it, F to that. P, we can give that, whatever you prefer it. So SDA1, that is for the root volume. The recommended device names for the Linux. So root volumes like SDA1, but remaining data volumes, as you can use it SD, F starting with that, and up to P you can use it any one of the character. Now let me identify this device in the instance as a SDF. I'm good with that. Let me go ahead. Yes, now we have attached this volume to the EC2 instance. Now you see this once it has been attached, it is showing that the status as a in use. So what is the meaning of this one is one volume we can attach to that only one EC2 instance. But I cannot attach that one volume to the multiple EC2 instances. One volume can be attached to that only one EC2 instance. But I mean, to one instance, can we attach that multiple volumes?
Yes, sir, we can do that.
Yes, we can attach multiple volumes. You see that server is the EC2 instance which we are talking that, but these two volumes that have been attached. Yes, we can attach multiple volumes to the EC2 instance, but one volume can be attached to the only one instance. That is the relation. Good. So the volume has been attached to the EC2 instance, but how I can identify that this volume in the EC2 instance? Now let's go back to that EC2 instance terminal. Suppose if I verify this df-h, do you see this? That's device XVF. No, right? DA1 previous it was whatever it was available, only that is available. But we have attached the volume to the EC2 instance. But even though that volume we don't see here in the file system, that is still as a hardware level it has been attached. But how do I see this list of all the block devices? So we say that they're all the block devices. So what is the command which you can use it? lsblk. List of all the block devices, that is which have been attached to the instance, which we can verify that this is, this is not the EC2 instance command. This is on any operating system. That is Linux flavor of the system on any platform you can use it. Yeah, so you see this one device. So this is a disk and which has been partitioned as a DA1 and which is mounted at root level. But another option which we have this is yes, XVDF. So which is having the size is at 20 GB. Yes, now just we have attached. But this is just as a disk is available, but it is not created the partition and it is not mounted to that. You cannot access it now. But it is as a hard disk which is identified from the hardware peripherals So this device has been identified, which is having the 20 GB storage as a disk. But if you would like to access it, the first you need to create a file system of this. So we need to create a file system of this. Once the file system has been created, then we can mount it and we can access that. But before that, the first of all, at any time, the before going to use the file system creations or the modifications, first to check it whether this disk is already having any data or not. That is very, very important. Suppose sometimes existing volumes, if you attach it, this contains already data. We should not do that again, creating a file system. There's already created the file system. But how do you know that about the disk already created the file system or not? So what is the command that we can use it is? So to check it that whether it is already created the file system or not, file -s and give the device name, that is xvdf. Now it is showing that only data something. That means it is not yet created the file system. So we have the file system types ext4, xfs. Just browse it one time in the Google. What are the different file systems on the Linux? ext2, ext3, ext4, latest one is xfs. On the base of the storage capacity, performance point of view, we create a file systems. Yeah, how to create a file system? Now this is not having any the file system, so I cannot use it directly this device to create the partition and mount it to that. First of all, I need to create a type of the file system. So how to create that the file system, which we have the command that is mkfs, make file system. So the device we are going to create as a file system. So we can use it mks, and here you can use the types as we are talking that the exe2, 3, 4, xfs. So we have these different types are available. I'm going to use it ext4 as we are using that low capacity page. But on the basis of that amount of the disk size, so extended file system also available, that is xfs type, which you can create it. But here ext4 format enough for that. Okay. We are creating a file system with the type ext4, but on which device that we want to create? The device is, what is the device? This is the device of that. Now it is created the file system. So first data block and maximum file system blocks. Yes, it is the created OS type, the Linux. And yes, if you observe that, so for block backups which have been defined, block groups, maximum blocks, and inodes also have been defined, and the size, block size. Yeah, so ext4 type of the format which has been created. Now if you check it, the file, the type, yes, you see that now. So this is the device on which is created with the Linux-based ext4 file system. And it is created one unique ID for this. Yes, each the device, that file system is going to have unique ID to access it internally. And it supports log files and as well as the queues files. Yes. So this is a file system which has been created. Suppose whenever you are trying to first checking about it, if you see this already file system created, then you don't need to create once again the file system. But we just created the device, but the device directly cannot use it. So we are creating that the file system. But sometimes we attach that existing volumes. That means already those have been created. You don't need to create once again back. But if you see this, Whenever you run it file-s, if you see the something data like this, that means this is not yet created the file system, then you can go ahead, whatever the type of the file system that's required, as per that, you can create it. Once it is created and if you verify that, so you can check it which type of the file system it is this. So now we have created the file system, so we are good. But now this file system I need to mount into that directory. Otherwise, how I can store the files in this disk? Type of the file system you have created on the basis of size of the file you are writing to this, reading from that disk, the amount of the storage or capacity of this disk based, we define the file system. But still, if I run it dff-h, you see that that file system which is mounted, can we access it? No, we cannot. So we need to mount this file system to the directory. Where do you want to access that? So this is the file system we have created, but we need to mount it. Then only you can access that. Then only we can see this in the disk file system.
The file system that is created is device-xvdf. No, sir. Here it is showing xvda1.
This is the partition.
Okay.
So the root file system, actually the file system is xvda.
Okay.
But partition is 1, 2, 3 like that. You can segregate it, that amount of the storage into multiple partitions.
But here
So,
it is xvdf. No, sir.
No, this is the root volume, the default which were taken.
Okay. Okay.
But still about our device is not to find it in the file system.
Okay. We need to mount it on directory.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is the root default one. First which were launched, right? 8 GB.
Yes, sir.
That's that's mount point, that volume. If you see this, so this is the first volume, the 8 GB. So this volume has been attached as a root volume, and which is which we can access that's as a xvda1. Yes, you see this has been attached as a xvda. Partition is 1, 2, 3 like that, but this is the main device, and it is attached as a root. Now, if you see the second one, which we have attached, yes, this is as a SDF. But SDF we have created, but we didn't mount it to access that. That's we are going to do that. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so the file system we have created, but it is not mounted. But how do I mount this one? So how do I mount it is, so we need to first to create directory. Where do you want to mount it? And once the directory is available, to that directory we can mount it. Let me create one directory here. So mkdir, I'm going to use the sudo as a root to user permissions. Here in the root file system, I'm going to create one project folder. Any directory name you can give it. Any one of the directory you can create it. Project. And this project directory, I would like to mount into this device. I mean, this device, whatever the storage which we have, the 20 GB, I'm going to allocate into this, or I'm going to mount into this project directory. But how do I mount it that? Sudo. So what is the device which I would like to mount it? Just use the mount command, and this is the device name. And where do I would like to mount it? Where do I would like to access this file system? I would like to access in this directory. Now if I verify this dff-h, now you see this, the device is available, xvdf, which is 120 GB, and used only 24K, 19 GB still that is available, and you can access the setup project as a project. Now if I go to this directory, the project. And what are the data I'm going to write it here? Suppose if I create a directory, something test, but that's require the permission, the sudo. And if I go to the test directory and if I write it some data, so sudo vi test dot some txt file I'm just creating, and I'm writing some data here. So this is to test the attached GP2 volume. Yes, now you can create a files and you can store the data in this project folder. So in this project folder, whatever you are storing is nothing but that is a default. It is storing in this device. Now I can attach this one or I can detach this one, right? So that means important files you can write it in this project. And if you are installing any softwares and those things, you can write it in the root file system. That is XVDA1 device, which you can terminate this one. But as a backup point of view, this device, you can take the snapshot and you can use that snapshot. Yes, you can apply the snapshot on this device. That means what are the data in this system you are writing here in the project folder, that is everything will be taken as a backup. Is it clear about that? So how do we create volume and volume attaching to the EC2 instance? Then checking with that LSBLK options, the list of block devices. So what are the block devices are available? So now you see that now if I verify that LSBLK, now we can understand, okay, so this XVDA, which has been mounted at root level, and XVDF, which is a 20 GB, which is mounted at a project as a directory. Now, what are the data I'm writing in the project folder? Everything that is storing in this 20 GB hard disk. So is it clear at this point?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, suppose now like this system is got failed. Some failure is happened. Now, what I would like to do this is, I cannot use it, this system. Now, the development team or testing teams, whatever the regular system which are using that's got failed. But we have this important data in this disk. That is XVDF, whatever the disk which has been created. But the system, you cannot log in it, the EC2 instance, you cannot log in it, and that is got failed. But you need to replace another EC2 instance. How do you replace it? Then detach this volume. Root volume, forget about it. Root volume, we don't care about it. There is a default files, the default AMI data, whatever we have, that is you are going to have it in the root. But application that's project related, the important data we have in this XVDF. Now, what we can do, we can, let's assume that this system is got failed. Now, whatever the volume we have, this volume we need to detach it from this volume, and you need to attach it in the second volume. And in the second volume, in the same location, whatever the data we have written here, the same data should be available in the another EC2 instance. Then how do you do that? So how do we attach it and how do we detach it is, so if you'd like to, this system is up and running, and if you'd like to detach it, suppose even like USB drive, whenever we attach it, we'll get it additional volume, right? Additional drive, that is a H drive, some I drive or G drive. Then if you are going to unattach, that is unmounting time. So what do you do that first? We do that unmount options. The same thing. So if you would like to detach this volume, from the EC2 instance. Now it has been mounted, right? Mounted at this project level, this device. Now this device you are taking out from this EC2 instance. First, unmount from this folder. Are you getting the points on this? So how do you unmount it is, suppose if I directly detach this, let me try to detach it. Suppose if I go to this volume section, now I need to attach this volume to another EC2 instance. That means if I would like to attach to that another EC2 instance, from this instance, I need to detach it. So let me detach it. Let me try to detach it. We have the force detach volume that is not yet recommended. Force detach. So that means forcefully, that means any data which is writing during that time, then maybe the data will be corrupted. So recommended is first to unmount it, then detach it. But detach the volume, it is not showing that option. You see that? Detach volume is blocked. Why it is? Still that is getting used. It is mounted. So first recommended is go to the machine and use it that U mount. So before we were doing that mount. Now this one U mount. Which disk I would like to unmount it? Device which is having that XVDF. But what it is saying, this target is busy. So why it is busy? Already we are in the current directory and you are trying to unmount it. That's why it is saying that busy. Let's go back to the root other folder, root. Then now apply that umount. Yes, now it has been unmounted. And if you observe the dff now you don't see that's in the file system. That is unmounted. Now the device which is ready to unmount it, that means detach it. Let's go back to the system. And if you refresh now, and if you select this and actions, now you see that's the detach volume is up. Before it was, not enabled, right? Only force was available. Force don't do that. Maybe you can do that with the POC environments or the development environments, but it is not at all recommended for that important the file systems point of view. So first unmount it, then go ahead, detach the volume. Now we have written the data. So in this volume, but from the EC2 instance, I have detached. That means USB drive, it is kind of, yes, I attach that USB drive and I find that I drive or H drive and I opened it and I have copied some files or created files and I have unmounted. That means I have taken out of this. Now this is available. You see thus this volume is available. Now what I do that is I'll go for that launching one more EC2 instance. That is something server 2. Let me use it. Amazon Linux 2 AMI. We do micro key pair. Let me use it the key pair, same thing. And network settings, we need to launch this one in the same availability zone, right? Otherwise, you cannot get that volume. That is important. Yes, I'm going to launch this one AP South 1A, where we have created about our volume. Volumes are locked to the availability zone. That is important. Okay, I'm going to use it AP South 1A and enable and security group. Let me choose that any one of the security group. I also not this one. Server security group. Let me use this. And yes, here, yeah, now you can get that some more options. Yes, volume. This is the default root volume which is attaching that. And here you see this option, yes, 8 GB the default, and which is going to give that the root volume point of view. What is the recommended? Device XVDA. And this is a GP2 and 100 IOPS, and maximum you can have it 3000. So on the base of the GBs, you can configure that. And delete on termination. So by default, what is the option which has been selected is whenever we are terminating EC2 instance, this root volume will be terminated automatically. But even the root volume, I don't want to terminate it, then disable this option. Even instance is terminated also, but your root volume still exists. Then that root volume you can take it and you can attach to the another EC2 instance and you can use it that. But root volumes normally that is not recommended. But yes, important data, there's a backend, the point of view which we can use that. Yeah, I'm going to launch that with this. Let me terminate it. Otherwise, we'll forget this. Yeah, I'm going to launch it with the default root volume. Yeah, here itself, you can attach that additional volumes also if you need it. Yes, it is going to start with that SDB, or if you need that SDF, or which one do you need that? Up to P, it is supporting that. P or SDP, SDQ, or ST. Oh, good. It is supporting up to 10. And snapshot, yes, you can, if you need it, yes, you can select the snapshot, but snapshots I'll come back. And how much size that is required, what is the type of that volume, how many IOPS that is required, delete on termination, is it required on this one or not? As we have selected the GP3, throughput it is supporting that. But if we have selected the GP2, the throughput it doesn't support. Yes, which type is required. Yeah, you can attach this volume here itself, but already we have that the volume, existing volume, we'll use it that one. Yeah, let me launch this EC2 instance with the default root volume I am launching. Yeah, now in the storage section, you can find it, the devices which have been attached to the EC2 instance. It says device XVDA, EBS volume, but still it is launching, right? It takes some time. Is it a root device or not? It is just giving the details. Root device type EBS and where it is mounting, and XVDA volume size, and still it is attaching. At what time it has been attached? But is it the volume encrypted? No. Yes. So the storage information of that EC2 instance, you can access it from the storage section. Server, first the server which was having only the root device right now. Yes, only the root device. The where we were, if you go to the volume section, where we were unmounting this one. Yeah, so let me take it this volume and let's attach to the EC2 instance which we just started. That is server 2, right? Yes, I'm attaching that the volume which was used in the previous EC2 instance. Let's assume that the EC2 instance got failed. Now you need to replace it, but data we should not lose it. Data management point of view, we are using that the volume. My volume is until available. I don't lose the data. Even the EC2 instance is crashed or corrupted, or it has been taken by that the AWS team as a spot instances. My volume is important. Yes, now that my volume is available, I can take this volume and I can attach to this instance. Yeah, now this one we have attached. Yes, it has come back to that in use. Now let's go back to the instances and the latest server 2 instance. Now in the storage section, you see these two devices that have been attached. XVDA and XDF. That is 20 GB and it has been attached. Now let me take it this public IP address of this instance and let's log in the mobile extent. Now the previous the EC2 instance volume we have taken and we are attaching to the another EC2 instance. How do we attach it and detach the volumes from one EC2 another EC2? So the fail used to handle it. This is the one more beauty. So now by default, if I verify that list of all the block devices, yes, XVDA which has been mounted, but my XVDF, the 20 GB is not mounted. Same process. So what do we need to do? We need to check it. The file system of this device. Is it already created the file system or not? What we are expecting that?
Already created.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Oh, it's already file system is created, right?
Yes, that is already created the file system in the previous the EC2 instance. Now, if you see this message, then don't try to create once again. Don't try to apply that MKFS. I mean, this is already created. This is having some data. Maybe data is there or not. Okay, the leave it of it. But it is already created. Is nothing but don't try to create once again. That means don't apply the MKFS command. If you apply that MKFS, then everything that will be formatted and it will be recreating that. So be careful that. Okay, so good. We got it the file system, and then let's create one directory. Where do you want to mount that? I would like to mount it as a project, the same thing. And let's mount it that this device XVDF to the project folder. Now if we verify this DFFNH, yes, we got the project directory. And if I go to this project folder, already we have created some folders and files, right? Do you see that? Yes, test folder is available. And if I go to the test folder, yes, test.txt also is available. And if I try to access that, the date, this file, whatever the content we have, we were storing that same data is available in this EC2 also, right? We didn't lose that any data, but we have just mounted that EC2, I mean that volume, and we have unmounted over there, and you can attach to that any EC2 instance.
So if it's a cluster server, can we use the same volume to attach to the multiple servers?
Multiple servers, if you would like to attach it, EFS is the concept which is available from AWS. Elastic Files Store. But EBS
How
volume,
different is this S3 volumes and this volume?
yeah,
S3
S3
bucket.
is different. S3 is different, but here we are talking to the block device, which we can
So, okay,
attach it
S3
and
is a
use it.
file storage. Is that the file?
That is object storage. I'll come back. That is, suppose if I'm having that project static files or the backup files, like suppose HTML files, CSS files, or database backup files, BKB, or log files, any type of object you can store it from anywhere. Suppose if you just observe that Dropbox or Google Drive, can we access from anywhere or not?
Yes.
From any device, right?
Correct.
The same thing, S3 is kind of the storage. S3 is, it is kind of the Google Drive or Dropbox. You can upload any files and you can access from anywhere with the URL based. But a block device,
Yeah,
we
directly
cannot
attached to the server.
Yes, we can access only this data through machines. Attach as the disk or volume and then use it that. But through URL, I cannot access this. So that is the main difference. Is it clear about this point? Now, how do we record the file systems? The volume is important. Instance is a fail, doesn't matter that. So if you have the volume, detach it immediately and launch that with the same configuration, with that type of instance, key page and everything. That is the templates. Use the templates and attach this volume and use that. Yeah, so that's about understanding on this, the volume section. But how do I take the backups of this? And how do I move this data from one availability zone to another availability zones or another regions? So what is the next concept which is available is that is snapshots. Yeah, once if you identify the volume which is required to take the backup, a backup, if we just talk it on this, the volumes, just always think it snapshot. Suppose now I need to take the backup of this, the volume. What I can do, I can go ahead and I can create a snapshot. And you can define the life cycle policy also. That means you can define the interval. So every 1 hour, I would like to take the backup of this volume. And I would like to keep that the backup, some 10 files as a backup, latest 10 files as a backup. Yes, you can apply the lifecycle policy on that also. Yeah, here also you can see that lifecycle manager. Or directly you can create a lifecycle policy. So let's observe that creating a snapshot. Yes, this is a volume. I'm going to create a snapshot. You can write the description, which purpose you are going to use it. Yes. So this volume copying to another zone, another availability zone or region. You can write some description of it. Yes, you see that already volume was encrypted, right? So whenever you are creating a snapshots and backups copying over the network, everything will be encrypted. That is the beauty of it. But if you don't encrypt it at volume level, then either creating snapshot level, it prompts for that. Do you want to encrypt it or not? Encryption is recommended as a security data. Even anyone hacked about our volume while that's networks, they cannot use it about our data. Yeah, creating a snapshot directly straightforward. So the volume and with the description. So let's go ahead and create a snapshot. Now the snapshot, you can find it in the snapshot section. Yes, this is the snapshot. But snapshot, the advantage what we have is still it is creating. Yes, advantage what we have is, suppose volume size, it shows that as a 20 GB, as we have the volume size 20 GB. But snapshot is not going to use that 20 GB. It is just 20 GB, it shows that is required for the snapshot. But what about the amount of the data, that size, how much it is used in this volume? With that usage, the volume is going to use the backend. Suppose the volume I have taken the 20 GB, but I used only 5 GB of the data. In snapshot, whenever we create it, snapshots will be created. Actual backend, it is going to use the volume only the 5 GB, but it is required the 20 GB up to that, but it is going to use it actually the 5 GB only. Yeah, so good. So that is created, completed this snapshot. Now I can use it, this snapshot. Either I can create AMI, I can create it, image. But this is not the root volume. What I do that with the AMI creation. So there is no meaning at all, right? So you should have some logical sense for it. But my root volume, I have the snapshot. Yes, root volume, you can take it and you can launch it. AMI, which is have that OS boot file system and everything. Yeah, you can create a volume from the snapshot. You can create image from the snapshot, and you can copy the snapshot also. So while copying the snapshot, you have that option. So the destination region, description, that's fine. And in which region that we want to copy that? Yes, it is asking that the region. So I need that something, the Singapore region. What is the code for the Singapore region? AP Southeast 1. AP Southeast 1. Where is that? AP Northeast. Yeah, Southeast 1. Yeah, I can choose it. And yes, the key. Yeah, this is the key that is required to perform that decryption of it. Yes, that is already encrypted. So decryption purpose, we need to specify the key. What are the key we have used? The same key. And now we can copy this snapshot to other region. Now if I move to that Mumbai to Singapore region, so let me go back to this another window. I'm just opening the Singapore region. I don't have those any instances for here, but instance you can create it. And what of the snapshot you got it. Now this snapshot you can create as a volume, and you can attach this volume to the EC2 instance in this region. So in same data that you are replicating that. So yesterday with the AMI we are talking that AMI is OS configurations and OS related. Yes, the boot file system, you would like to manage it as a cloning, then you can use it that AMI. And the template is within that the region, and if you need that the multiple instances with the same configuration, then you can use the launch template. But data, if you would like to synchronize it between the regions, then what is the concept that is available is the volumes. And once the volume is available, and if you would like to replicate the same data in the different regions, then create a snapshot. And snapshot is very, very important while cloning the data or copying that data, backing up for the disaster recovery's point of view. So in that volume, what of the data we have? Yes, I have this everything backed up. So now once this snapshot is available, I can create a volume here, and that volume I can attach to that the EC2 instances which are running in this region. And if you just observe that on the volumes, snapshot lifecycle policy, let me show that that's one also. Create snapshot, that is one time. But same activity, if I would like to repeat it, so it is not having any tags that is saying that. So let me create a tags for this. So this is a tag name. Let me give that the name as a server. Because while creating the tags, it is instead of depending on the instance IDs or volume IDs, it is going to refer the tag based. That's point of it is asking that tag created. Yeah, when are you creating a lifecycle policy to take the snapshots? Suppose 10 o'clock one backup, 12 o'clock another backup, like that time interval based. I need to keep on take the backup of the current instance. Then how do you take it? The manually are you going to take it? Every 2 hours coming to the system and log into the system and take their backup. So you can define this, the policy. Yeah, target a resource type. Do you want to take the backup on the basis of the volume or on the basis of the instance? Yeah, volume, you see, thus it is asking that tag based. Target resource tags. So yes, what is the tag we have defined? The name as a server. Or if you have those different tags, you can define that. And which one do you want to use it? That's you can define it. But I'm good with that tag based. Already it is taken. Or if you would like to define this tag based, yes, you can define it. Or instance based. Instance resource tags also you can define that. That means all the instances which are having the same tag, that will be applied this policy. All the volumes which are having the same tag, this policy will be applied. Yeah, I need to take that the 4 volumes in the single policy. How I can define it? All those 4 volumes should be defined with the same tag, key and value. Then if I define that's key and value here, then all the volumes which are having these tags will be applied this policy. Then policy description and IAM role, yes, IAM permissions required. And policy status is enable that. And the default role, okay, let me go ahead. And the description, so this is volume backups. Now you can define the schedule here. Yes, what is the interval that you want to use it? Yes, schedule name and the frequency. Do you want to take the daily or weekly or monthly or yearly? Or custom cron specification, like how we are using on the Linux system. So cron specification also you can define that every 1 minute, every 1 hour. And the retention type, how many backups how many latest snapshot do you want to manage it? Suppose if I say that count as a 10, that means the latest 10, the snapshots that is going to manage that as a backup. Suppose 11th one is creating that. 11th one is creating is nothing but oldest one will be deleted. So you can define the retention number of either on the basis of the count.
Sir, generally,
yeah.
Sir, generally retention is the number of days we are holding that backup on, sir.
Yes.
That's what year.
Yes, exactly.
If it is 20 days, after 20 days, it's moved to some other.
No. So here, so the first option count is nothing but it is not the days. That is the number of copies.
Yeah, snapshots.
Yes, number of snapshots. Yes. Or if you specify the age is like the days. Suppose if I say that 10 days or 20 days. Last 20 days, the snapshots that will be managed as a backup, and older than the 20 days, the snapshots will be automatically deleted.
Sir, this is okay, but go back to this. Other than age, we are having that one, sir. Count.
Okay. Yeah.
In this case, here we have 10, sir. If suppose we are having the 11th or 12th, means the first 2 will be deleted, and in place of that, these are being added. Am I right?
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
The latest 10 that is going to keep it, and 11th one is creating is nothing but oldest one will be deleted, and the latest one will be added to the 10th list.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, good. Yeah, so you can define the schedule. So on the basis of the requirement, so what is the interval that is required, and backups required or not. Backups, how many copies that is required, or age based, you can define it. Then you can go ahead and review the policy and apply the policy. Then automatically the time interval, whatever you have defined, either daily based required or the specific cron job. Cron job is more deep, right? The 1 minute based you can define, hourly based you can define, or day based define it. So it has been given the cron specification also. Yes, as the volumes, the backups required, you can apply that the scheduling option, and you can review the policy and create a policy. Then as per this policy, the backups will be automatically generated. Then you can write it one AWS CLI script, and these are all moving to that S3 storage as a permanent backup if you need it. Suppose a production kind of the volumes if you're creating a backups, we don't define that this retention limitation, because maybe the client wants this last the 1 year copies or the 2 years copies. Yes, on the basis of this you can define this also. But yes, if you don't want to lose that any backups, then each backup, whatever the snapshot which is creating, we can use it CLI approach, AWS CLI, and we can upload that all these backups to the ES3 storage. But what is that ES3? And how do we use it S3 to store that objects? We'll come back later. It is kind of like a Dropbox or Google Drive. How do we have that? The same concept. Yeah, so it would like to take the skip on backups on that volumes. Yes, Lifecycle Manager is the option which is available, which you can use it, and you can define the schedule on that volume, and automatically the backups will be created. Then even that some systems suddenly corrupted and yes, crashed, then until that if you have the volume, then you don't need to worry about it losing the data. So that's about the volumes snapshots and with the lifecycle manager policy. Is it clear about these concepts? How do we attach it, detach the volumes? That is one thing. And how do we manage the copies of the volumes? That is creating a snapshots. And the snapshots you can keep it in the local, or you can copy that as a disaster recovery point of view into the other regions also. So are you clear? Can I terminate all these instances? Type the C quickly in the chart window if you are the clear. Review one more time all these concepts, and the lab guide is also given that. Just to follow the lab guide. But interesting and important. Good. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to clean up this. Let me clean up the servers first. Then AMIs we didn't create it, right? Anything today? Yeah, the volumes. So automatically these two, the root volumes as it was defined, on termination volume also will be deleted, right? The default root volumes will be deleted, but this volume won't be deleted. So we need to delete this one. Meanwhile, I go to the Singapore region, which I copied the snapshot. So still that is showing the pending. It is copied. Let me check it, refresh. Okay, it has been completed. It has been copied also. And here, yes, if you would like to create volume from this snapshot in case that from this region, you would like to launch it. Launch the EC2 instance with the same data. You can take this volume and you can attach to the EC2 instance and you can use it. I don't have any volumes of the AMIs and which way in the Singapore region. And in the Mumbai region, let me observe that, yes, those two default root volumes have been terminated automatically. Whenever the instances was terminated, the default root volumes automatically terminated. But my volume, which we were creating, still that is not terminated and it has come to the available state. That means no instance is using this volume. Now I can use it and I can attach to that another EC2 instance also, right? But I don't need that. Let me delete this volume. But snapshots is not going to deleting that. Yes, you need to delete explicitly this one also. And anyway, lifecycle manager, we didn't define anything. So So if they have done that, so that is going to have it all these policies. These are all for my application which have been created. So just leave it off that. Yeah, so that's about the volumes understanding, the volumes snapshots concept. So tomorrow we'll conclude one more time and we'll continue. The next one is this concept, that is load balancers. Yeah, so that's all from my side from this section. Yes, any queries, questions, please let me know before going to wind up. Everyone, are you practicing the labs?
Yes, sir.
Referring the lab guides?
Sir,
Yeah, hello.
sir, this may be silly doubt, but I have, when we
problem.
are practicing this, means EC2 instance volume creating snapshots, what is, when power cut is there or internet issues there, then what happened to this? Those are like that only.
Yeah, I mean, it is not going to happen anything because they're all not running in your system, right? Actual backend hardware peripherals and everything that is running on Amazon premises. Suppose once the power is available, you are connecting to that internet. Internet is, suppose, let's assume that you are trying to attach in that internet got failed. Then attachment failed. Then once there's a power has come back and the network is available, then again you can attach that volume to the EC2 instance.
Okay.
But actually the EC2 instance and volumes are not in our local system. They're all in the AWS cloud. But if the network is dropped or power you lost it, then it is not going to happen. Suppose you have already attached and you have submitted. That means you have already submitted the request in the AWS cloud. And suddenly if you lost the power or if you lost the network, then after submitting the request, AWS is going to create it in the background.
Yes.
Then you don't see any impact. Once you got the power back and if you open that the EC2 instance, yes, that is a mount, that is attached. Then you can use it that, the volume.
Okay.
So that is before submitting the request or after submitting the request. That is the only the difference with about our from about our system. But once you submit the request and you lost the power, yes, that is you have submitted to the AWS and AWS background it is doing that. That is not in your local system, it is not doing, right?
Yes.
So from running instance, how can we create a copy of AMI? Actually, I was not able to find that option. I'm a running instance.
Okay.
So that I make it as AMI.
Okay, so yesterday which we were talking this, okay, let me anyway show that. Suppose if the instance is up and running, so go to the actions and image, templates and create image.
Okay, sir. Okay. Yeah, got it.
Yeah. So actually this is terminated, that's why it is not enabled.
Yeah, I got. I was looking for AMI option. I saw this template and image, but I was not recognizing that as AMI. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so that's all from my side, everyone. So tomorrow we'll join and we'll start about reviewing about this concept once again. In the PPT level, I need to mention some points. We'll go ahead and we'll start the load balancer. Yeah, thank you all, and try to refer the slab guide and practice on it. Or you can, I mean, if you have the confusion, go ahead. The once again, this lab, I mean, yeah, all these steps referring the video. Then noted all these comments and comments. I will share it. Whatever I have used that file-es mount command, ru mount command, and make file system, lsblk. There are some 5 or 6 commands which we are using. So those things I'll ping it in the WhatsApp. Yeah, thank you.